You're listening to the Machuta podcast, bringing you the latest insights into transformational business, coaching, ABM, automated marketing, and AI solutions.
Have you ever looked at a big brand and thought, must be nice to have the budget the size of a small country? Same. So today I want to discuss how to build real brand authority without spending like you're sponsoring a Formula One team. So today's episode is all about building brand authority, especially on a budget. So if you're running a startup or an SME, or maybe you're a fractional CMO like myself, trying to get some impactful work done without a blank check, listen on. When I say brand authority, I mean this. When someone in our space asks, who should we trust? Your name comes up. People believe you know what you're doing. They quote you. They share your posts. They invite you onto panels. They send you referrals. And the best part is you can earn that without paying for endless ads. We're going to keep this light, practical, and properly usable. I'll give you a few frameworks with examples and some action steps that we can easily action this week. Let's get into it. Let's start with a simple definition. Brand authority is earned trust at scale. It's the feeling someone gets when they land on the website, when they see content, they hear us speak, or they speak to somebody who's worked with us in the past and they think, yep, these guys are credible. Now, authority isn't the same as awareness. Awareness is people recognizing our name, and authority is people trusting our opinion. We want both. But on a budget, authority is the smarter first move because authority creates a kind of marketing flywheel. Here's what I mean. When you have authority, your sales calls are shorter because you don't have to prove everything from scratch. The price conversations are easier because we're not being compared like a commodity. The inbound leads are better because people self-select, and the content performs better because people share it. So the question is, how do we build that without a big spend? Well, we can do it with clarity about who we are and how we can help. Consistency, showing up often enough to be remembered. Proof, showing that it works. And having a point of view, having a take, not just reporting the news. So if you're thinking, that sounds like thought leadership, you're right. Thought leadership is one way to build authority, but it's not the only way. Thought leadership is like being the person with the interesting ideas. Authority is broader. It also includes being the person who reliably gets results. There's a lie that floats around marketing and it goes like this. If we just had more budget, we could build a brand. Budget helps, obviously. If you can buy billboards, sponsorship, and massive reach, you can move faster. But most brands do not fail because they don't spend enough. They fail because they don't have a focused message, a repeatable content engine, a clear audience, a system for turning attention into trust. The real constraint for most small businesses is not money. It's attention and discipline. You do not need to do everything. You need to do the right small set of things repeatedly. So I want to give you a small mantra. Be useful in public consistently. That's the entire game. Start with one sharp positioning statement. If you want authority, you must be findable and memorable. And for that, you need positioning. Positioning sounds fancy, but it's basically answering, who do we help? What do we help them do? Why are we different? Here's a positioning statement you can steal. We help a customer achieve a result by method. For example, we help B2B SaaS founders reduce churn by improving onboarding and activation. We help e-commerce brands increase repeat purchases by building smarter retention journeys. We help professional services firms win higher quality leads by clarifying their offer and creating a content system. Now, if you work in marketing like me, your positioning matters too. So for me, instead of saying fractional CMO for hire, it's a bit like saying person with hammer available. What about fractional CMO for early stage B2B SaaS focused on pipeline and positioning? Fractional CMO for founder-led agencies focused on offers and content. When this is clear, everything else gets easier. The content gets sharper, partnerships become more obvious, websites become simpler, and the authority builds because people can place you in their mental filing cabinet. So let's talk again about thought leadership. The term has been ruined a bit by LinkedIn posts that begun with unpopular opinion and end with agree. Thought leadership doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be polarizing for the sake of it. It should just be original enough to be worth reading, specific enough to be believable, and useful enough to be shared. Here are 3 low-budget thought leadership angles that work well for startups and SMEs. Teach what you do. If you want to look like an expert, teach. Not in a patronizing way, in a here's how we approach it way. For example, if you're a cybersecurity company, explain the top 5 mistakes SMEs make with password policies in plain English. If you sell HR software, explain how to run a better onboarding process. If you run a design studio, show how you go from a messy brief into a clear brand system. The goal isn't to give away the secret sauce. It's to demonstrate that you've got the sauce at all. So share decisions, not just outcomes. Anyone can post a case study result. Revenue up by 40%, lovely. But authority grows faster when you share how you decided what to do. People want to learn judgment. So share what options we considered, what you said no to, what trade-offs we accepted, and what you do differently. Make a clear, repeatable point of view. A point of view is a simple belief you apply to your work. For example, we believe brand is a growth channel, not just decoration. We believe founders should talk to customers weekly, even at scale. We believe marketing should be measured, but not worshipped. When you repeat your point of view across content, your audience starts to associate you with it. That's authority. Not because you shouted it once, because you lived it publicly. Owned media. That's our budget's best friend. So if we're on a budget, we can't rely on rented attention. Rented attention is platforms where you don't control distribution. Social media is the classic example. Owned media is where you control the relationship. For example, our website, email list, podcast, YouTube channel, or the community. Now, I'm not anti-social media. It is useful. But if your authority strategy is post loads and hope the algorithm smiles upon us, we're playing on a hard mode. A good low-budget approach is use social media to be discovered. Use owned media to deepen trust. So here's a simple flow, and it's one that I use. Post a short idea on LinkedIn. Link to a longer piece on the website. Invite people to subscribe to an email list. Send one genuinely useful email every week. And occasionally invite people to book a call or try the product. That's the system. And systems beat bursts of motivation. So a quick note on email. So email is deeply unglamorous, which is why it works. If we can build a list of a few thousand people who actually care, you have a real asset. You don't need a massive list. A small list to the right people can generate a lot more revenue. It's not about volume, it's about relevance. We could create a simple content engine. So let's make this practical. If you want authority, you need consistent output, but you don't need to become a content factory with a creative burnout problem. Here's a simple content engine I use and recommend. One idea, many formats. Pick one core idea every week and turn it into a longer piece like a blog or a newsletter, 3 short posts like LinkedIn, an audio version like a short podcast section, one visual like a simple carousel or a diagram. This gives you consistency without starting from zero every time. If you want to learn more about this, I did a whole podcast about it last week. The content bucket approach. Okay. Choose 3 to 5 recurring themes. For example, as a fractional CMO, I might think about positioning and messaging, demand generation, retention, customer marketing, team and processes, and founder communication. Then rotate. This stops me posting random stuff and calling it a strategy. And the proof layer. Every few weeks, add a piece of proof, a case study, a teardown, a behind the scenes, a lesson learned from a project. Authority grows when people see you applying your ideas. It's that simple. So what about partnerships and the underrated authority accelerator? If we're on a budget, partnerships are the fastest way to borrow credibility. Not in a dodgy way, in a we are trusted by people that you already trust way. There are a few types of partnerships that work particularly well. So, co-marketing with adjacent businesses. Find a business that serves the same audience but does not compete. So a few examples, that might be a fractional finance director partnering with a fractional CMO, a web development studio partnering with a copywriter, a CRM consultant partnering with a paid media specialist. Then do something together, a webinar, a joint guide, a podcast swap, a bundled offer. The key is to make it genuinely useful. If it feels like 2 people stapled their logos together and called it a day, no one cares. So if you want quick authority, get into rooms where your audience already gathers. Podcasts are brilliant for this because voice builds trust faster than text. You don't need to chase the biggest shows. Small, niche podcasts with the right audience can outperform big ones with the wrong audience. So a simple pitch structure could look something like a compliment that proves you listened, a clear topic you can speak on, 3 bullet points of whatever listeners want to learn, a quick line on who we are. Keep it short. Make it easy. What about join 1 or 2 communities where your audience is? Not to spam, not to contribute, to answer questions, share templates, offer feedback. Consistency over time builds reputation. That's the authority. Let's talk about practical low budget branding tactics that actually move the needle. Not theory, just the tactics. Simplest way is fix the homepage messaging. Your homepage should answer in 5 seconds, what is this? Who's it for? Why should I care? And if it doesn't, authority is leaking. We tend to have this fixation of just shouting about the product, not actually saying why it's important. So a simple, clear structure, clear headline with outcome, 1 sentence explaining for who, 3 bullet points for how it works, and proof like logos, testimonials, numbers, and maybe a clear call to action. Create 1 flagship piece of content. So a flagship piece is something you can point to repeatedly, like a guide, a benchmark report, a toolkit, a long-form article. This becomes your authority anchor. It's much easier to build authority when you have a big thing to share. If you're on a budget, do 1 really great thing per quarter, not 10 mediocre ones. And collect proof continuously. Proof isn't something you scramble for when you need to sell. Make it a habit. Every time you finish a piece of work, capture the before state, what you did, and the result, and maybe a quote from the client. Even if the results aren't massive yet, capture the progress. Authority is built from evidence. And use a consistent design. You don't need fancy design, but you do need consistency. Pick 2 fonts, small color palette, a simple layout style for social posts, then repeat. Consistency makes you look more established, and that increases trust. And give your audience a way to start. Authority isn't just about being admired, it's about being chosen. So offer a clear first step, a free audit, a short call, a template, a newsletter. Make it easy for people to engage. So let's look at a quick framework, the authority ladder. I like frameworks because they give vague goals, some concrete steps. So here's the one we can use. The authority ladder. Say something useful. Show you did it. let others vouch for it, and repeat until it becomes your reputation. Let's make that practical. Step 1. Say something useful, share a lesson, share a framework, share a checklist, make it simple. Step 2. Show how you did it. Turn that lesson into a mini case study, a behind-the-scenes post, or a short video explanation. This moves you from interesting to credible. And step 3, let others vouch for it. So this can be a testimonial or a partner mentioning you, a client referral, or a guest appearance. Other people's validation accelerates trust. And step 4, repeat. Authority is not built in a week, but it's built surprisingly fast when you show up with a system. Right, let's look at some common mistakes to avoid. It's some that I see all the time. Trying to look big instead of being clear. Some businesses, especially small ones, sometimes try to sound like massive corporations, and it usually backfires. Clarity beats corporate polish. Okay. Mistake 2, content that's too generic. If your content can be written by anyone, it builds no authority. Be specific, mention real scenarios, share real trade-offs. Mistake 3, posting without a conversion path. If you post useful things, but don't give people a next step, you're leaving value on the table. At a minimum, you want a link to a longer piece, a newsletter, a clear way to contact you. Mistake 4, over-measuring early. Measurement matters, but early on, consistency matters more. If you spend all your time obsessing over tiny numbers, you will stop. Pick a couple of metrics like email subscribers, qualified inbound leads, podcast downloads over time. Then focus on shipping. So let's pull this together. To build brand authority on a budget, we've got to get our positioning clear. We've got to be useful in public consistently and use owned media, especially email. Create a reputable content engine and use partnerships to borrow credibility. Collect proof and share your processes. And let your personality through, because being human is an advantage. So here's my call to action for this. If you want to read a bit more about what we've covered today and maybe a few templates that you can copy, head over to matuta.studio and have a look at the latest posts or insights, and you'll find a transcript of what we've talked about here today. If you're a founder or a team lead or somebody who works in marketing and wants help building authority without burning through budget, you can also reach out to me there. I read every message. So that's it for today. If this episode has helped, share it with somebody who's trying to grow without a massive budget. It makes a bigger difference than you might think. And thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Matuta podcast, bringing you the latest insights into transformational business, coaching, ABM, automated marketing, and AI solutions. If you liked this episode, please like, rate, and share.